Where are there? I can't see trigoid process in this picture. But 16 students answer correct. Thank you. In internal surface, there aren't trigoid process. And at first, I explained about body of sphenoid bone. The body of sphenoid has a three surface: anterior surface, superior surface, and inferior surface. On the anterior surface, you can see sphenoidal crest, and it has a chamfer for sphenoidal sinus. And anterior to sinus, you can see a thin layer of bone. Is called sphenoid concha. This is the sphenoid concha cover the sphenoidal sinus. Just this. But the superior surface of body is very important, and you can see ethmoidal spine is triangular shape. This is the ethmoidal spine. You can see jugum. This is the jugum. Jugum is a flat area, is located between lesser wing. Inferior to jugum, you can see chiasmatic groove is here. Chiasmatic groove. Chiasmatic groove at the corner continues with the canal, optic canal. This is the optic canal, inter to orbital cavity. Inferior to chiasmatic groove, you can see tuberculum sella is here, and you can see a depression fossa as a tuberculum sella, as a sella torsica. This is a sella torsica. And posterior to sella torsica, you can see dorsum sella is here. Tuberculum sella and sella torsica and dorsum sella. Actually, in sella torsica is here. There is a hypophageal gland or pituitary gland is located here. And look at the lesser wing. Lesser wing near the termination is here. There is an anterior clinoid process. Anterior clinoid process. Lateral border of tuberculum sella, there is a middle clinoid process, and the lateral corner of dorsum sella, there is a posterior clinoid process. The location of clinoid process is very, very important. You should know about location of an anterior clinoid process, middle clinoid process, and posterior clinoid process. And finally, posterior to dorsum sella, you can see clivus. It's similar to clivus of occipital bone. Actually, clivus of sphenoidal bone continues and attached to clivus of occipital bone. It's here. The yellow bone is sphenoid bone. And in this picture, you can see a greater wing of sphenoid and lesser wing of sphenoid. There is a fissure between lesser and greater wing. The name of fissure is superior orbital fissure, and superior orbital fissure enter to orbital cavity. In the greater wing of sphenoid, there are three foramen. Foramen rotundum is here, oval foramen is here, and spinosum foramen is here. Oval, spinosum, and foramen rotundum is very, very important. This is the rotundum, this is the oval foramen, and the little foramen is spinosum foramen. You should know about the content of this foramen. For example, the maxillary nerve passing from foramen rotundum, and mandibular nerve is passing from oval foramen, and middle meningeal artery passing from spinosum foramen is very, very important. This is the foramen rotundum for passing maxillary nerve, foramen oval for passing mandibular nerve. Both of them are branch of trigeminal nerve. And this is the spinosum foramen for passing middle meningeal artery. This foramen. And behind the spinosum foramen, you can see another spine as a sphenoidal spine. This is a triangular spine, is ethmoidal spine, because ethmoidal spine immediately attached to ethmoidal bone. The name of this part of the bone is sphenoidal spine. This is the lesser wing, and I explained about superior orbital fissure. The fissure is located between lesser wing, greater wing, and body. And from the superior orbital fissure, this nerve is passing this foramen, oculomotor nerve, tracheal nerve, abducent nerve, and ophthalmic nerve. And this is the blue area is superior orbital fissure for passing four nerves. And finally, in the external surface of base of skull, you can see a trigoid process. Trigoid process contain of two plates, medial plate and lateral plate. There is a fossa between medial plate and lateral plate. The fossa is called trigoid fossa. Trigoid fossa. And let's look at the medial trigoid. Medial trigoid in the inferior continues with humulus. This is the humulus, trigoid humulus. And at the superior, the medial plate is bifurcate, and between the bifurcation of medial plate, there is a scaphoid fossa. Scaphoid fossa is a place for origin of muscles, soft palate muscles. skull tensor valley palatine. Yes. Mehmet Amin, do you have a question? You raise a hand. Okay, I think you don't have a question. And I ask you another question. Please look at the picture and ask the question and answer the question. Do you see there rotundum foramen in greater wing in lateral surface of sphenoid bone? This is the lateral surface of the sphenoid bone. Do you see a rotundum foramen? I kill all of a student answer yes. Where is the rotundum foramen? This is the oval foramen. This is a spinosome foramen. Where is the rotundum foramen? It's very important point. The rotundum foramen is just on the internal surface of the skull, and you can see this foramen on the external surface. After the class, I kill all of them. Except Lubina, Ali, Amin and Sheikh Zain Hossein answer no. Thank you. Okay, I share the screen my laptop, and please look at the video and about the sphenoid bone. Sphenoid bone.
Now we'll move on to look at the sphenoid bone. The sphenoid bone is extremely complex. It extends all the way from one side of the skull to the other. The sphenoid bone forms important parts of the underside and outside of the skull, and it forms part of the orbit.
The pink bone is
the sphenoid bone also forms this large and complicated part of the floor of the cranium. Here's a sphenoid bone all by itself. The sphenoid bone has a central part, and on each side, three major projections: the lesser wing, the greater wing, and the pterygoid process. The central part of the sphenoid includes the clinoid processes and the pituitary fossa.
This is the
central part of the sphenoid bone is hollow, as we'll see. The lesser wing, which is the highest part of the sphenoid bone, forms the sphenoid ridge.
I forgot for explains here. Sphenoid ridge actually border of lesser wing, and it's leading to separate anterior cranial fossa from the middle cranial fossa,
which separates the anterior and middle cranial fossae. The underside of the lesser wing forms this small but important part of the back of the orbit. The greater wing of the sphenoid forms the front wall and part of the floor of the middle cranial fossa. On the outside, the greater wing forms this part of the temporal and infratemporal fossae, and it also forms this large part of the lateral wall of the orbit. The greater wing and the lesser wing are joined here, but more medially they're separated by this triangular gap, the superior orbital fissure, which forms a large opening between the orbit and the inside of the cranium. Here's the superior orbital fissure from the inside. We'll get a better look at it in a minute. The pterygoid process of the sphenoid bone projects downward behind the maxilla. The pterygoid process includes the lateral and medial pterygoid plates, which are the attachments for some important muscles that we'll see later. This hollow between the pterygoid plates is the pterygoid fossa. This little hook is the pterygoid hamulus, is a pulley, as we'll see later. The last bone on our list of large facial bones is stand at first, the only parts of the ippa, the two cribriform plates with the...
Okay, it's finished. Okay, guys, today's subject is finished. The next Wednesday, I explain about another skull bones. If you have a question from frontal, occipital, sphenoid, and parietal bone, you can ask the question.